Norm, I understand we have our call-in guest on the line. Is that right? Rick Mehta. Good morning, Rick.
For U.S. Senate candidate Rick
We're going to get to that. Calm down.
Okay.
Calm down.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. It's Rick. Always pleasure to be on with you guys.
How are you, Rick?
Good morning, Rick.
Good to hear your voice this morning. How are you and your family faring with all this?
Yeah, no, we're doing well. Thank you for asking. Given the circumstances, we're blessed. I can't complain.
Good. Awesome. Rick, you and your... and I've never realized, getting to meet your wife not long ago, there is a Cumberland County connection.
You never realized we actually discussed that there was a
yeah, but I mean, there was more. It was more of a personal discussion because I was able to have that discussion with your wife, Rick, and so that was very nice to learn as well. And you have some children, so tell us a little bit about your family and yourself here, just for a minute.
Yeah, happy to, Bob. So you're right. My wife, we do have a connection to Cumberland, very deep, actually. When my father-in-law first started his construction business more than 20 years ago, he did a lot of development, commercial property development down in Vineland and Millville. And in fact, to this day, built in 1994, still stands Rima Plaza, named after my wife, Rima, and it's a commercial strip lot down in Millville. So, yeah, we do. And we live up here in Morris County, and we have three little gentlemen, I like to call them, who are now, I believe, driving my wife crazy at home. But they're good boys.
Nice. Very nice. So, Rick, there's so much we could cover here.
With Rick's background with health.
Right, but you took the words right out of my mouth, Steve. I mean, you have a background in pharmaceuticals, and there's so much that's happening here with this virus. But I'm curious professionally, Rick, and then we'll get into the politics here in a minute. But professionally, the idea of coming up with a virus and all the things that I know the president's pushing for. And by the way, folks, of course, Rick Mehta is running for U.S. Senate. So to co-mix this, Rick, with your background in pharmaceuticals and the president trying to expedite getting a vaccine made me realize how much sometimes government can get in the way of getting things done because of being overregulated. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you took the words right out of my mouth. So I am a pharmacist and a health professional first, but I'm also an attorney, and my background actually is regulatory law. And so other than taxation, the entire cumbersome regulatory framework that we have continues to crush our businesses. And one thing now that I think everyone has seen with this pandemic is that we need to enter a new normal. And that's not just practicing social distancing, but an entire overhaul in the way that government practices economic development and financial stability for our state. Yeah. And the one thing that I think that President Trump needs more than ever are more health professionals that are entering into politics that can shape the future of which direction our country is going to lead. And, just to talk politics for a minute, look, it's no secret that Senator Cory Booker has never been around. Right. But not only has he not been around, he's a guy who doesn't understand the delivery of health care, the practice of medicine, and is completely unequipped to deal with these issues. And I'll give you a quick anecdote. Just last week, he was pushing to introduce legislation to bring funding back to the World Health Organization that the president put a pause on simply to determine whether or not the WHO has bias. And someone who's a health professional, now I'll tell you, Bob, I'm also an international public health expert, and I'm a law professor, and I teach this. I know the palpable bias, and I'm the first one who went up there and said, you know what, not only should the Director General of the World Health Organization be fired, but we should freeze funding to the WHO until we investigate why it took them so long to declare a public health emergency of international concern that could have saved lives. I mean, they're there to save lives. And they didn't do their job. And so I'll tell you right now, the president needs public health officials and health professionals in politics to help guide the direction of which way this country is headed.
Well, I'll tell you what he needs. He needs Rick Mehta in the Senate. That's what he needs.
There you go.
I mean, but Rick,
because in talking with you, Rick, you seem to feel the same way that we've been talking on this show. There needs to be kind of a regional approach too, like South Jersey, North Jersey. There is a difference.
Well, absolutely. And so, look, this is not a one-size-fits-all. Now, listen, this virus we all know is very serious, and there's no doubt as a health professional, people need to be cautious. But our federal and state governments also need to balance that with the public health risk to economic damage and also mental health anguish, right?
Yeah.
So now we have people that are stuck at home. We don't know what the new incident rates, and when I say incident rates, it's just a scientific epidemiological term to say new cases. Mm-hmm. What are the new cases of mental health disease that are coming down the pike because people are being crushed? And even the New York Times, which is, I think, a pretty liberal biased newspaper, reported that New Jersey, supposedly being the second most, well-to-do state in the union, has these enormous long lines down in South Jersey. And when you couple that to the real science in terms of a number of incident rates and what we call doubling time, there's really no reason why incremental approaches to reopening the economy regionally down in South Jersey, the shores, and also, the casino areas, why we can't implement a plan that's specific to those counties, those regions, based on the data that we're collecting on the incident rates of this disease. Yeah. So, exactly, Steve. I agree with you. I mean, I think that it's high time that we had a better approach and a more informed scientific approach to reopening our economy.
Rick, I want to back up a second about your comment about the WHO with Senator Booker, and why Senator Booker took this position. And let's call it the way it is. One, he is not versed on this stuff. So it is not his background. But Cory Booker is carrying the Democrat talking points. This is what he's doing. So he's carrying the Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer's messaging and being that spokesperson.
Well, it's whatever Trump says, they got to say the opposite.
Exactly. But, the idea here, Rick, I mean, of having, someone like yourself being able to serve with not just your background in education, but your knowledge in these times is so paramount. We don't need somebody just to carry a political message. We need somebody who's going to dig in and get the scientific facts, because that's how we beat this stuff. This stuff, Rick, it's so unprecedented of how our constitutional rights have been stepped on here. And this is a great concern. I mean, I understand, I think, like most Americans, there are certain precautions we have to take. But, like we're hearing the U.S. Attorney General Barr now talking about, how the Constitution doesn't get to be trampled on in times of a pandemic.
Never has in the past.
No, and
during pandemics,
and this is the other questions. And then, as I say, these are Bob Greco's words, Rick. You have King Murphy over here, in New Jersey, talking about how there's going to be consequence if you people mess this up. And you got an attorney general who brags about in law enforcement. And, look, Michigan, we're seeing this, Rick. People have had enough. They're standing up. I mean, this Governor Whitmore is in trouble over there. And if Murphy thinks he's going to threaten people into compliance rather than educate them to be able to be safe, I dare to say, and I'm not advocating this, but I'm just saying I dare to say he's pulling the tail of the tiger. But your thoughts on all this?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, having a one-size-fits-all makes no sense to me. And again, that's grounded in science. And so, Phil Murphy continues to seem to be bent on keeping the state shut down, not just for several weeks, but several months. And he continues to destroy our economy accordingly, especially, like I said, Jersey Shore and South Jersey, where, we're not seeing the same incident rates and case fatality rates as we are up in the northern part of Bergen County. And why is he creating this one-size-fits-all? It's not grounded in science. It's actually grounded in politics.
Yeah.
And that's what I think continues to be unfortunate. And it's these times, I mean, look, we all heard what Phil Murphy said. He said the Bill of Rights is above his pay grade.
Yep.
He already agrees that it's not his job to follow the Constitution. It's his job to, do what I say, and that's it. Yeah. And I think that this needs to be a wake-up call. You see all across the country, parts of Michigan and others that, people are standing up and they're not going to take this anymore. And now that's not to say that this disease doesn't exist and no one is disregarding the contagion rate and how serious this disease is. Yeah. It's saying trust your people. Yeah. It's saying businesses are already regulated and there's provisions in place to make sure that businesses can self-regulate while implementing smart public health measures. It's not saying we're going back to the norm, the storm has passed, let's everybody open our doors and walk outside. It's saying, let's do this in a smart fashion, and can we, as a community, come together and do it? And it makes no sense to me why I can go to my liquor store, but I can't go to my boutique clothing store.
Right.
But I can go to Walmart and buy clothes.
Yeah.
But, other folks can't have their businesses and doors open. And look, we already, like you said, have a very complex and cumbersome regulatory framework. You have cosmetologists, barbershops, and others that are already required to be licensed by the state, right? And what does that license mean? It's not just a piece of paper with a signatory on it, and then you pay your fees. Sure. It's intended to have a series of regulations that you follow in order for you to practice your trade and keep your license and keep your business open. And so if you're already regulated and required to be licensed to practice your trade, why can't those same tools and principles be used to allow for businesses to implement public health measures to reopen? And so this sort of, I'm going to tell you exactly who can stay in business and who can't. Yeah. That doesn't work. And New Jerseyans are smarter than that. And I think, everybody's starting to stand up and see that.
Yeah. And Rick, we can't make a mistake about it, that Cory Booker supports the governor's measures. He's lockstep here and then some, So, look, to your point, Rick, when it comes to those businesses, and we were talking the show right before ours. There's a show called.
Wait, like what we were talking about was I can take my dog to get her hair cut, but Bob can't get his hair cut.
Yeah, so there's and there's but the show before ours is called Hair Story, and it is about
they're hairdressers.
They're hairdressers. There's two individuals that have been around quite a bit, and are been around quite a bit, in making their careers grow by traveling all over the world. But to your point, Rick, so they're licensed, and part of the licensing component is dealing with issues on infection control and safety. So that's why people are licensed. So they understand, those things. They take those precautions, and quite truthfully, they're inspected to make sure they're in compliance with those things already. So to immediately diminish their standard and their license and their qualifications and their certificates, to be who they are, government steps in and says, you're not qualified. Well, I already have a license. I'm already qualified. I already pay a fee to do business here. I had to be educated in it. And now you step in and say, I'm not qualified, and wreck people's business lives. I just have a problem with this, Rick, because people generally will make the right decisions when it comes down to protecting themselves. No doubt about it. This is serious. But for God's sakes, to just trash and trample all over our Constitution, and thinking that government knows best. We don't. Sounds like another country to me.
That's right. I couldn't agree more. And actually, you know what? Let's speak about other countries, right? Where did this whole issue start? It started in China. Yeah. So first off, let us make no mistake. China covered up.
Yeah.
They silenced their own scientists that tried to give us early warnings about coronavirus, and it resulted in a quicker spread of the disease. And so that's the other half of it. And you mentioned Cory Booker and Phil Murphy being in bed together. There's no doubt about that. And, Cory Booker only ran for president because Murphy allowed him to keep his Senate seat while doing so. Yeah. So they already are, two little peas in a pod. Yeah. And so there's no doubt in my mind that they have their own bias. Yeah. And so when Cory Booker goes up there to refund the World Health Organization without looking at the fact that China continues to be and is a communist country. It's the Chinese Communist Party. Yeah. Okay. And so for them to continue to support China is beyond me. Our United States and our allies, and this is why I'm proud of the Trump administration for standing up, slapping sanctions on China, tariffs on China, on importations. But going a step further and sanctioning those Chinese nationals involved in this cover-up, that's what we need to do. We need to hold individuals responsible. Yeah. We need to recover the trillions of dollars that have been lost. Yeah. And we can't be afraid to stand up and say, you know what? China is responsible. It's their communist party. And so to your point, recreating sort of a regime here that's a dictatorship in America, we already know doesn't work. And so it's got to be a balanced, incremental, and reasonable approach. And look, everybody's already scared. There's nobody really that I've seen going out without wearing a face mask. No one's arguing saying, hey, I want to be in public and not wear a face mask. They're saying, I want to be able to practice my trade and sell my goods. I want to make a living and I want to be able to feed my family. Yeah. Basic necessities. That's all people are asking for. So you're right. I think we have a constitutional crisis on our hands. And the coming weeks will really tell and maybe show good leadership from bad leadership.
Yeah. I mean, as far as communist type nations go, this week's hold on, let's get the press release from the Attorney General's office. AG Gruel and Colonel Callahan issue weekly roundup on COVID-19 enforcement matters. Ready for this? This sounds like a communist nation. Newark enforcement. The Newark Police Department's COVID-19 task force issued, get this, 490 summonses for violations of the emergency orders and ordered 8 non-essential businesses closed and enforcement actions during the past week, April 24th through 30th. Wow. We have the police are walking, driving, whatever, around, issuing summonses for people not staying at home. This is America.
Well, I will say this.
Did we lose them?
No. Rick, you're still here.
I'm here.
Yeah,
what do you think of that? 500 summonses in a week.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Well, and this is exactly the point, right? It's, they're very quick to enforce against people that are, how long did it take the Murphy administration to finally come around and reopen our state parks in an incremental way? And to me, again, it doesn't make sense how I can't go to my place of worship, but I can go to Home Depot, and no knock on Home Depot, any hardware store. Right. How is it that I can buy a hammer, but I can't sit in a pew? Yeah. And it's it's the bottom line is because the government doesn't trust its individuals. And look, come November, come voting day, remember that. I want everybody to remember that those that you voted for, they didn't trust you. And so vote for those that trust you. You want to be able to trust your elected officials. They should be able to trust you and back. And so trampling on our constitutional rights, our freedoms, without doing it in incremental fashion. And the bottom line, and I think what frustrates me the most out of all of this, is that it's not grounded in science. Yeah. They keep saying, well, we need to look at the science. Well, okay, look at the incident rates. Look at the case fatality rates down in South Jersey and the Jersey Shore. And then you tell me, we're not talking about Bergen County, which, God bless everyone that's fighting the good fight over there. Yeah. And even in Bergen County, I was on doing a Facebook Live with Assemblywoman Holly Shapizi, who covers 20 counties in Bergen, really right there on the front lines of her constituents talking to folks. And even they're ready to figure out ways to incrementally open up their small businesses again. And to your point, we already have a very cumbersome regulatory framework even before this pandemic, that should be utilized in order for, folks to reopen their trade. Otherwise we don't want to see Bob going to a pet groomer for a haircut.
Right. Thanks, Rick.
I do.
Yeah, I know he does. But here's the thing, Rick. I said this earlier here, and just hear me out here for a second. With some political satire, I said the coronavirus doesn't like Democrat-controlled states. Well, and I say it, of course, political satire, but I really mean at the end of the day, what is a fact is most Democrat-controlled states are riddled with poverty. And poverty, unfortunately, breeds poor health. And poor health is where people are a target for illnesses such as the coronavirus. So why is New Jersey, and this is what people need to hear, why is New Jersey so poor? Why is people, their health is so bad? And these are the Democrats and the Cory Bookers pander for votes for people who are impoverished and dependent upon government, where they become the most vulnerable in our society. So in my mind, Rick, I say this, I just really truly believe that these Democrats, in a roundabout way, have put society at risk by keeping them down.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And here's the thing, even before this pandemic, the Democrats continue to push an anti-business, anti-taxpayer policy.
Yeah.
And it's driven a lot of business and jobs away. And let's not forget, before this pandemic, there was a survey that said that more than 46% of people had thought about moving out of New Jersey and were looking to move out of New Jersey in the next 5 years. So it's not like we've frozen in time. That hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And so even before this pandemic, Booker and his Democratic cronies in the legislature have made New Jersey non-competitive with our neighbors here in the U.S. and globally. And so how can we expect companies to settle in our state when all they do is push higher taxes and more regulations and continue to make the state unaffordable for employees to live? And so we already know the governor has a pension crisis on his hands. And so is he waiting for a federal bailout and creating this one-size-fits-all in order to get more stimulus money so he looks good? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so I think there's going to be a lot of questions. To your point, let's look at our fundamental rights first. And so we need elected officials who are going to focus on creating jobs. Why did, you mentioned, my background being in healthcare and medical innovation. Why did we lose thousands of jobs to China and abroad that were here in New Jersey?
Exactly.
Manufacturing medicines. We used to be the medicine chest of the world. Yeah. And now that title has gone over to China. Yeah. Not only has it, created fragments in our supply chain, and not only have we lost thousands of jobs, we've put our national security at risk.
Rick, isn't it kind of the same that when people who are impoverished become dependent upon government, that the United States has become dependent upon China? Think about that.
Yep.
Look, man, I really appreciate you spending time, Rick. I mean, I could talk to you all day. Your background certainly fits the time that we're in, and America needs people like Rick Mehta more than ever. So thank you for taking
top
the time.
Of the hour. So that was a quick 25 minutes, huh, Rick?
Hey, I appreciate it.
So, we're coming up on the top of the hour, so tell people how to reach out to you, how to find you, all that good stuff before we go to the break.
Yeah, listen, if you want a U.S. Senator that's going to hold China responsible for this, then vote for Rick Mehta. Go to rickfornj.com. Follow us on Facebook. We do a lot of Facebook live shows that talk about these issues. Been on a lot of media outlets talking about this. The bottom line is we've got to hold China responsible, and the only way to do that is to get Booker out of office. So go to rickfornj.com, rickfornj.com, and follow my campaign along. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Awesome, Rick.
Thanks,
Rick. Thank you for taking the time and calling in. Let's keep in touch and be well.
Will do.
Okay. Rick Mehta, ladies and gentlemen, running for U.S. Senate. We're at the top of the hour. The Bob and Steve Show.